ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here, Oilers Live, for another Wednesday night edition of the Oilers live stream and podcast. I've got a couple of usual faces now, co-hosts. I don't know what we're going to call you guys anymore. But we've got Ryan Lotsberg. That's right, Ryan Lotsberg at Lots Ryan on X. And we've got just Patrick at Oilers Fanatic YT on X. Welcome
Your
to
name
the
doesn't
show,
make
guys.
sense about my last name.
It doesn't. We know you as Ryan Lotsberg. It is what it is, right? We're just happy to know you. Dash is on LTIR right now. He's not feeling well. So we wish him the best and a speedy recovery so we can call him crazy once again. And Patrick, lots happened today in Oilers land. So give us the rundown, the Oilers Fanatic rundown as quick as you can. 2 seconds, Patrick. No, you got longer. Do what you can. Give us the rundown.
Oh, I'm going to go for about 20 minutes here, so just buckle in.
Okay, well, let me put myself on mute.
Well, let's start with the trade from yesterday. So the Oilers in a three-way trade with Boston and New Jersey, picking up Trent Frederick and Max Jones and prospect Peter Hauser. So the Oilers called up Max Jones today from Bakersfield. So no word yet if he's going to be in the lineup tomorrow night against Montreal, but he has been called up. And the Oilers also recalling Cam Dineen on an emergency basis. Matthias Ekholm and I believe John Klingberg as well, both dealing with an illness. And Ekholm's expected to miss a little bit of time. I don't know if it's 1 to 2 games, but he's very unlikely to be in tomorrow night against Montreal. The Oilers have also loaned Matt Savoy back to the Bakersfield Condors. So Savoy and Max Jones kind of trading spots there. And I think that was everything the Edmonton Oilers did today. So, yeah, Ekholm expected to miss a little bit of time. Cam Dineen, Max Jones coming up, and Matt Savoy to Bakersfield.
All right. Well, that's lots. That's lots for a day after a 6-2 loss to the Anaheim Ducks. I was about to say Mighty Ducks. I haven't heard that one for a while.
They looked mighty last night.
They did look mighty last night. And despite the fact, where they are in the standings, they're not a bad team. Like, good young team. McTavish, man, he can get that puck up in a hurry. The guys can score when they get the puck on the right spot. It just seemed to be bouncing their way. Not that the Oilers played a great game. Not that the Oilers played.
We got some breaking news here. Not Oilers related, but a potential person the Oilers would have been interested in. Utah has re-signed goalie Karel Vejmelka to a 5-year contract at $4.75 million AAV per season. So Vejmelka off the market.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to say that doesn't surprise me. And I think when we were talking about Vejmelka, whatever, however we pronounce it, I'll have to figure that one out. I was certain that last year he said he didn't want to come to Edmonton. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
Lottie, thoughts?
I don't know where to begin there. I don't think we were going to get Vejmelka anyway.
No, probably not, but yeah.
Part of me is kind of glad he got re-signed, just so we don't have to hear people whining and complaining about some other team having grabbed him and us not grabbing him. But yeah, if we want to dive into the transactions of the day, we can certainly do that. Or what should I speak of on first?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk about the transactions of the day. I mean, there's lots happening. I don't know who it was. Somebody in the heavy hockey group chat was saying it might have been Ragu talking about how trade deadline day has really become trade deadline week. And I think we're noticing that a lot more year over year. Some major trades happening this week, including the Oilers, right?
Yep.
Out of everything, though, non-Oilers related, is there one in particular that really strikes you?
The one that actually just went down a couple hours ago, the Michael Bunting to Nashville for Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak. That was a curious one, interesting, good old-fashioned hockey trade between two non-playoff teams. Like Bunting hasn't exactly been a home run in Pittsburgh, nor was he in Carolina and after he left Toronto. And like I really like Tommy Novak. I don't know why Nashville would be in a hurry to get rid of that guy. Like if they're looking to retool, that's a good young productive player to keep in your lineup. So I'm not sure why they were in a hurry to get rid of him, or why they saw Bunting as a huge upgrade. So that was an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm always interested too when a team trades away a guy that they drafted, right? Drafted and developed, who isn't awful. I mean, there's clearly something else there, right? Like just maybe time for him to move on, whatever it is. He'd been there for 4 or 5 years now, I think, right? Novak, that is, and then Bunting. Clearly, this is his second go at the trade on the trade wire. He's got moments, but that's about it. Moments.
He's
right?
Zach Hyman light,
Yeah.
but not anywhere close to as effective.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Well, when he was in Toronto, I mean, they were touting him as as the
Oh,
next.
that's what he was in
next
Toronto,
Hyman,
was Zach
right?
Hyman light, right? Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
came in, he was there to replace Hyman essentially.
Yeah. In the chat, JL says Max Jones going to play tomorrow, according to Gregor. Good question. Will it be at the expense of Skinner again? We're going to talk about Jeff Skinner because we talk about Skinner every Wednesday. And,
Probably.
yeah. Anyway, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Vanacek to Florida. Not a big surprise there. I mean, we were all suggesting Florida was the likely destination.
After the Spencer Knight trade, I think that was pretty likely. As soon as they realized Vanacek was out, it was not hard to connect the dots.
Yeah. Did you guys? Well, I guess no, it didn't happen before last week. What do you guys think about Seth Jones going to Florida?
I think it's a good move for them. Another big red shot D, and with Chicago hanging on to $2.5 million of his contract, and I imagine he'll flourish again with the Panthers. Wouldn't be shocked. I mean, you never know, but I think it's a good strong move for them with the cap space they had.
Yeah.
I know there was a.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I know there was a lot of people that weren't exactly high on Jones because analytics, right? But he's been on a bad team in Chicago for a long time, and it's not like Columbus was all that great of a team before that. This is the first time we're actually going to see him on a really good team. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I think it'll turn out fine for them. But I think Spencer Knight was a hell of a pickup by Chicago. I think that was a great move by them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. Seth Jones, I'm interested now. Like this is this is his shot, right? Like this is Seth Jones' shot to prove that he's not the reason, right? You know what I mean? Like because analytics they tell a story about him that isn't always flattering, and he's was close to being first overall when he came into the league, right? Like, and some people had him at first overall. He was that good and that touted, and it's just not turned out that way in terms of him making that big of a sizable difference on any team. So I think this is a good shot. I mean, obviously Florida's looking to do something, right? And as they should be. I don't think they're even done yet. We'll see what happens with Florida. And Kachuk's on IR right now. What's he on? He's not on.
LTIR.
LTIR, yeah.
he's done until the playoffs. Like they wouldn't be making these moves unless he was for sure out to the playoffs. So,
which is fine for them, right? I think, right? Like, I mean, he probably could come back sooner, but
Yeah. Panthers signed Puliarvi today too.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
I heard that. So he's not coming back to Edmonton in a Taylor Hall 3-way deal where Hall and Puliarvi end up back on the Oilers. Wow.
Yeah, see how that goes for him. But
Desharnais is in San Jose.
Yeah. Reunited with Costin.
Yeah.
Will he be there by the end of the day?
We'll see. We'll see. For a 5th round pick.
Yeah, Finney had a rough go in Pittsburgh, and it was a rough go in Vancouver before that. I mean, I like the guy. I like cheering for the guy when he was here. One of those ones where you wish him nothing but the best as he left our team and as he went forward, but hasn't been good for him this year. So hopefully he finds some ice time in San Jose and can find a home there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that I like Desharnais, like big guy, good story, right? You know, later on in the career, but just not consistent enough, and of course, discipline was always the problem, right? Like especially like at the worst possible. I mean, there's never a good time, but he just seemed to find the worst possible time, and then he'd dig in deeper every time. Like it was just, you know. Anyway, I wish him luck, obviously. Let's talk Oilers. Do we have enough time? Do we have enough time? You know, we went you know, that this team is in talking about this team is the definition of roller coaster. You know, the beginning of the year, of course, right? Lots to talk about. Lots about why, you know, their makeup isn't ideal, right? They were going to be a slow team. They were going to be this. They were going to be that. Defense was going to be the problem. And then they seemingly get it back together. This time, thankfully, without a coaching change. And they're really the best team in the league for a big stretch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up until 2-3 games before Four Nations Cup break, right? You know, and they're pulling out games. Skinner has stretches where he's got numbers that rival best goalie in the league, right? Like he's, you know, and Picard from a backup standpoint, you know, the same thing. And so, you know, you got to point to it, and people were still, of course, as Oilers fans are apt to do, still saying we need a goalie, or we need, you know, this, or we need that. And so if that's your take, then clearly the defense was doing something right. You know, like the defense was playing accordingly. But there, like, let's be honest, there just wasn't any sort of wow moments for this team where we thought they were going to the Stanley Cup for sure, right? Like we still, I think as fans, that's why there were still a lot of complaints out there, is because we didn't, I'm not sure any of us felt like this was, you know, a guaranteed bona fide Stanley Cup contender. Still had to completely expect it or appreciate the fact that they were winning games. Draisaitl's on a tear, right? Like he's, you know, if he doesn't win the Richard, something happens, right? Along the way. You know, we talked about this, Lotzi, you know, about them coming off of break, how they always start slow. But then I think about, you know, what you've said in the past, like, you know, is whatever's happened in the past doesn't guarantee anything in the future, right? I mean, you talk about it as more about future success, right? Past. And the same should be said for a hockey team, like when they streak and when they don't streak. Like it shouldn't matter whether they, you know, go on slumps after. There's just no reason that you could possibly take that would make you understand why this is happening. So I don't know. This is a jump ball, but I mean, do either of you have a plausible theory on why, what the turnaround is? Was there a moment, a turning point in this Oilers season? Lots of you put out. I haven't had a chance to read the article yet. I probably should have read it before we got there. But Knobloch says the team is fragile, right? Maybe that's a good place to start. Lotsy, what do you look at when you look at this Oilers team? Is there a turning point where they became fragile? And what was it? Do you know?
It's hard to put a finger on a specific moment where they became fragile, but I would say right at the start of this streak is when they really became fragile, right? And even earlier in the season, they were having similar problems. They lost the first 3 games of the year. Even throughout the first month of the year, they didn't play at a very high level. They were doing some good things, but it just wasn't clicking for them. But the sense in the room and like what we got as fans from the media, from the players in interviews, is a sense of calm, a quiet confidence, like a certain underlying strength. They knew that they were a better team than what they were showing. They knew they would pull themselves out of it. But we're just not seeing that out of them right now. They're saying all the right things in the room, but on the ice, we've seen it ever since the Four Nations break ended. Those 2 games in the weekend where they got down early, there was a noticeable deflation, right? That wasn't happening before. It's like somewhere along the way, I think that confidence may have turned into complacency, right? Or they're comfortable, right? Like, yeah, they're calm. They know they're a good team. They know they can come back from any situation. They know they're going to get out of it eventually. But you become comfortable in that setup, in that situation at a certain point. So then you stop doing the things that you need to get out of that streak. You fail to bring up the compete level. You fail to bring the energy. You fail to go to work. You fail to stick to the details, just because you have this underlying confidence that it's all going to be okay. Well, hopefully this streak is the reality check that they need, because they got to do those things that they need to do to pull themselves out of that streak. It's not going to happen just because they've shown they're good at hockey in the past, right? Past success doesn't lead to future success.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean 100%, right? Patrick, any thoughts?
Well, I think it's a whole combination of things. I mean, earlier in the season they were falling behind, but I think they always had the confidence that they could get back, and if there was no lead that seemed like it was insurmountable for them. But I think a lot of times if Skinner or Pickard, it seemed if they had a bad start, they would lock it down after the first period. Like they might give up a couple bad goals, but okay, then nothing else is going in, or very rarely did they let anything in the second and the third. And the Oilers have really been a second period team for the vast majority of the year. They've had bad starts, but they really turn it on in the second period. And I think a lot of times lately over this last little while, we haven't seen that same team in the second period. And there's been changes to the team, like John Klingberg came in, not to pin it all on any one guy, but a character guy in the room like Derek Ryan went down to Bakersfield. And I mean, these are like Derek Ryan's not going to come in and like, oh, we took Derek Ryan away, we're not scoring goals now or something like that. But there's character guys in the room that I think do make a difference, and it is a disruption to the room. And I don't think it's any just one thing. Oh, Derek Ryan left and John Klingberg came in. We're terrible now, but I think it's a whole combination of things. The goalies haven't been making that one save when the Oilers really need them to make a save. The defense in front of them isn't playing the same way. I think Matthias Ekholm's had that sickness for a really long time now, so that's affected his game. Evan Bouchard's looked off pretty much the vast majority of the year. He's had little spurts here and there where he looked good, but he's been off. And I think it's just when we were saying when it rains, it pours, and it just seems like it's raining on pretty much everything for the Edmonton Oilers right now. If it can go wrong, it is going wrong.
Yeah, I think you're all right. I've got a bit of a theory, which is, and part of the reason I think we keep going through coaches, right, is you have this team where you have two bona fide superstars, like absolutely elite level talent in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, as we know. And I think this happens with every coach we've had over the past 6, 7, 8 years is they go through these stretches and then they start to rely on those two, right? Like they start going to that nuclear option and they stop trusting the team, right? And I feel like when Knobloch came in, his whole thing was we're going to play a team game, right? And I think this year he changed that a little bit. The whole Skinner thing, and we'll talk about that or not. I don't know, but like that's part of it, right? Like this is exactly it. Like trust somebody, right? Trust some guys to make this team better and stick with it. You know, I think what happened is, first off, if you go back, we weren't beating good teams. We were beating bottom half teams, right? And we were playing from behind a lot, and so that lots has been made about this team as a second period team. Like we're a second period team because the Oilers were down, a goal. I mean, when you're watching Oilers hockey, you just expect that the first goal will go the other way. It's an expectation. If it's not, you're lying to yourself, right? Like we expect the other team to score first. That's the way it is. We expect that. And so, once the Oilers get down, this has happened to every coach that's ever been with the Oilers in the Connor McDavid era. What do? You go to the nuclear option, right? I.e., you don't trust the rest of your team to take you out of there. I think it sends a message. I think we as Oilers fans, we're always talking about secondary scoring. But you need to have some trust and you need to allow your players to be successful, right? And when you put, Leon and McDavid into this role in a season the way that it is, like the run up to the Four Nations was a ridiculous schedule, right? And then you're adding onto them that, hey, we need you to play a full 20 minutes in the second period, right, to get our team out of the hole. I think they're tired, right? And then they get tired. They get, I would imagine from what we saw on the Amazon series and other things, they probably get a little nasty with the other players in the group too, right? Like they start to think, hey, I'm the only one scoring. But I think it comes down to coaching at some point. Like they have to trust the other players to be successful. And you can't just rely on McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't think the team relies on them. I think the team wants to play. Like these are professional players. There's no way they go out there and think we're good. Let's just let Leon and Connor score. You don't think RV wants to get on the board? Hell yeah. Right? Like they're not out there saying, yeah, let's just let Leon and Connor score, right? But they got to be trusted with, that capability and that thing. There's no doubt there are passengers on this team, right? Like I'm frankly like Arvidsson is the guy I think should be sitting instead of Skinner. Connor Brown, I mean, I don't know. Like I think, was it you, Patrick, earlier said it was funny last year, but it's not funny anymore, right? Like it's not, as a fan, it's not funny watching him play anymore. He's awful, right? Like Janmark could do something, right? Like we could get some bottom six guys rolling again. Maybe something to do with coaching and trusting those players a little bit more. I don't know. But it's got to start somewhere. And what I would love to see is Knobloch just like honestly take a night off and do the blender and practice and stick with some lines for a change. You're already losing. Like take a loss if you have to stick with some stick with some regular lines and give these guys a break. Like, it's not going to get any worse, right? Like, we're not going to get any worse watching the Oilers. But you're right. The other thing is there were a lot of changes in a short period of time. You keep bringing guys in and out of the lineup. Ekholm sick, Klingberg coming in. I think that's a lot. Like, it's you might as well have a new coach because you don't have that chemistry yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my thoughts. Lotsy, any thoughts in that regard? I see your brain, like I see the hamster going, and tell me, yeah.
No, I think you have a good point about trust. That was one thing that Jay Woodcroft did really well initially, like when he first got hired, and then we went on that run to the conference finals. Everybody had a role, right? Everybody felt valued. Everybody had a job, so to speak, right? And you're right. Like pretty much every coach, when things are going badly, you go to Connor and Leon. You put them together, right? That's kind of the simplistic logic when you're sitting there on the bench. What do we do? Yeah, put the two best players in the world together on the ice, right? Things are bound to happen. But as we've seen, it's not a video game. Just putting all the high-end talent together doesn't necessarily result in doubling offensive output. It just doesn't work like that. But you're right, guys have been up and down the lineup, in and out of the lineup. Like I've said from a long time ago that Knobloch clearly doesn't trust Skinner. There was a comment here a couple minutes ago referring to the video from the drop in the summertime where it was quite evident that Knobloch wasn't interested in having Skinner at all, but they signed him anyway. Right? Yeah, I don't think Knobloch's trusted Skinner from the beginning, and his ice time shows. It shows it. Right? Skinner can score and be one of the better players out there, but he's scratched the next game. So there's a clear lack of trust there. And what does that say to the other players? I can do well and still be kicked out of the lineup. Like, yikes. Right? And you got guys like Arvidsson who don't do much and then get elevated. Why?
Yeah, and frankly, we can't go to another coach, right? So Knobloch's got to figure this out now, right? Like, I see the look on your face, Patrick, right away. Even the discussion of it, right? Like, it's just like, how many times? And I feel like it's probably any one of us in this situation would say, "Hey, I've got Leon and I've got Connor, and I'm down by 2 goals. Put them together and get us a couple goals, guys, and let's get back in it." But I think that might actually be the wrong thing to do. Yeah, Patrick, thoughts?
Well, I don't know. Lotsy, you should maybe do an article called July Worst, because July 1st has turned into an absolute disaster here for the Edmonton Oilers. I think Corey Perry is the only one that's worked out from their July 1st signings. Connor Brown hasn't worked out. Victor Arvidsson hasn't worked out. Jeff Skinner hasn't worked out. Adam Henrique hasn't worked out. Matthias Janmark hasn't worked out. Go down the list. Like, July 1st was an absolute. We all thought, like, I'm not going to take anything away. I was extremely excited about what Jeff Jackson did that day, but sitting where we are right now, aside from Corey Perry scoring 13 goals now, and Corey Perry should not be the player that's working out the best from your July 1st signings. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing Connor and Leon put back together, because this team consistently fails to find guys that can play with those guys so you can keep them split up, because you got Arvidsson failing. I mean, Podkolzin was there, but as much as we like Podkolzin, he just doesn't score a lot. And if you're playing in the top 6, you got to score. You don't have to score 50, but you got to score. You got to be good for at least 25 to 30. And it's just not happening. So, yeah, July Worst. That's the new one.
I did a piece at the very beginning of the year. It was the summer of discount shopping, and I kind of forecasted some of what we're seeing. Right? Why was Jeff Skinner available to us? Got bought out in Buffalo. He wasn't living up to a $9 million contract. Okay, take the bet at $3 million, but know that the player has some warts. He got bought out for a reason, right? Victor Arvidsson, injury issues, can't stay in the lineup, and he's in his early 30s. You know what that means? Inevitable decline at some point, right? So, guy was available for a reason. We got him at a discount. Even Podkolzin, it wasn't working out in the Canucks organization. 10th overall pick. We get him for a 4th rounder. Right? Ty Emberson. It was one of many defensive prospects hanging around in the Shark system. They got Cody Ceci and another pick, so they get a veteran guy that can help them out in the now, and they get an extra draft pick just for getting rid of a 24-year-old D prospect that was superfluous for them. Great. Discount buy for us. I'm not dissing Emerson. I think he's been fine on the third pairing, but that's kind of, we're bargain bin shopping. That's kind of the way it's been because we've been so tight to the cap. And hopefully this is the last year of that because the cap's going up next year and we don't have an LTIR situation for next year. Hopefully, knock on wood. But how long has it been since we've had gone into a season without an LTIR situation? Right? It goes all the way back to Oscar Klefbom.
Just want to address a couple of things in the chat there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think Podkolzin was a panic trade, but he was something out of necessity there with Dylan Holloway going out. So I wouldn't say a panic, but something out of necessity. And to Goat Farmer, Podkolzin certainly gets some credit. But like I said, if you're in that top 6 position, you got to score more than he does. Like he certainly deserves some credit for the season that Leon Draisaitl had, but you got to score, bottom line.
Yeah, I mean that's the challenge with Podkolzin. Although he's doing a lot of other things this team isn't doing.
Yeah,
and
no, he's been good.
Things,
yeah.
Like every team, like most teams anyway, have somebody in their top 6 who doesn't put up the numbers to warrant being in a top 6 role, right? How many teams have 6 true top 6 forwards? Right, so it's not the end of the world that we have one guy doing that, but like he is just not producing at all.
Yeah, I like Arvidsson is big disappointment. He had I feel like he had 2 or 3 games where I was like, right on, this is the Arvidsson we wanted, and then that was it. And for the most part, I jokingly said he was a lot like Yamo, but he is, right? Like he goes in, he bumps around a lot, twists and turns a lot, and seemingly he gets pushed off the puck a lot and all these other things and not scoring, right? I just Arvidsson to me is the biggest disappointment. And and the guy that I actually think could put numbers up on the score sheet isn't playing because Knobloch's got a beef with him. I still have never watched the episode of The Drop. Like, what is it that Knobloch hates about Skinner? Did he say or?
I mean, he didn't come out and say, I hate Jeff Skinner. Like, it's inferred based on the way that the information's presented, but they're talking about the defensive metrics of a specific player who it was quite obvious it was Skinner, right? Talking about a player that gets a lot of ice time on a bad team that has questionable defensive metrics, but still scores a lot of points for you. Like most of the management team was all excited about it because Skinner produces offense, especially at 5-on-5, and you put him beside one of Connor or Leon, and the expectation was that he would produce. Just hasn't happened. Nor has he gotten an extended run beside those guys. It's never been more than 8 games at a time.
And he's still what, 8 or 9 goals? What's he at now? Do we know?
I think he's over that.
Yeah, for the amount of time this guy's played and the inconsistency that he's played, he's got 11 goals on this team. On this team, which really is sharp drop off, that puts him in 6th in scoring. And
he's done most of that from the bottom 6.
And most of that from the bottom 6. When I watch Skinner, he might not get he doesn't get credit for all the shots he takes towards the net. He likes to shoot the puck, right? fact, we're dying for a guy that likes to shoot the puck, are we not? Are we like a guy that and the reason he misses the net is because he's not shooting at the breadbasket, right? Like he's trying to score, trying to shoot where the goalie isn't, right? Like there's a lot of things to not love about Skinner, but you got to love the one thing that he does, which is he wants to score goals.
Yeah.
And he's not been given that opportunity. And I just don't get it. I think at some point, I mean, I'm surprised. And he still comes to, like, every time you see him, he's still got a smile on his face. Of course, Puljujärvi always had a smile on his face too. It doesn't account for much when it comes to on ice performance, I guess. But hey, this team's got some guys there that can do some things. Any word on when Frederick's back or could be back?
2 to 3 weeks, apparently.
All right.
So not anytime soon.
What do we know about Max Jones?
I don't think he's too exciting. Just your typical fourth line guy, tough. He's had trouble staying in the league. I don't think he scores a lot either. So he's just basically going to bring some toughness.
Yeah. Which
that's
is not that's not a bad thing.
No,
right?
no, they need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they let him on the ice.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you got to play him though.
Right.
Yeah.
This team actually needs to, like, Corey Perry tried it the other day, right? Corey Perry, one of the oldest guys in the league, and he's out there, with a little bit of sandpaper, starting fights, doing whatever he can, right? That's not your guy. That's not the guy that should be doing that, right? Like, somebody else has to do it. Corey Perry's got to be a part of that. That's his game, 100%. But, you got to have a whole team thing. Like, these guys got to come out against Montreal, like, swinging. Maybe that's why Max Jones is in the lineup. Maybe it's just like at the beginning of the season it helped. Just get mad. Get into a couple scraps. Have a little bit of care about winning a game. Right? Or at least if you lose, make the other guys hurt. And it just, I mean, it was hard to watch the other night. It was really hard to watch, right? And we start out it's not that we start slow, because a lot of games this year, the first 5-10 minutes, the Oilers look great, and then the first time the other team comes down the ice, they score, and then you can hear the air deflating from the tire. You can see McDavid and you can see Drysdale, the face start to droop, like, here we go again. And then 4-1 in like a matter of, felt like, I blinked and all of a sudden Anaheim had put up 4.
I think it was 7 minutes, something like that, 6 or 7 minutes. I think.
Yeah.
Because the Oilers were good for like you said, for the first 10 minutes, they were great, and I think their goal came at like 10 something on the clock. So, and they were down.
I thought they were going to blow them out. I thought this was the team the Oilers needed.
They needed a game like that.
Was going to have a 5. Yeah. I thought McDavid was going to have a 5-point game.
Yeah. No, they were due for a blowout game, except it went the other way. They got blown out.
Yeah. Rediscovery Records says the handoff from Holland to Bowman was a debacle. Could have cost us the season. Maybe. I mean, I guess you're putting the blame on Jackson there, if that's what you think. Interesting. I mean, a lot of people obviously. I felt like when Jackson was in that interim role, a lot of us were saying, "Let's keep him in." I was one of them. I was like, I loved what he did, and I thought he did the right things at the right time.
Yeah, no, we all
hindsight's
did.
2020.
Yeah,
right.
It was we were all excited, but at the same time, it was an odd situation the way that all played out. Like, I think they all knew damn well that Holland wasn't going to come back, and I just think that it was clear that Bowman was Jackson's guy, right? I think that's pretty obvious at this point, and we know that Bowman wasn't reinstated until after July 1st. Right? It was early July. I can't remember the date, right? So I think he was willing to hold out and go through what he went through. Like it was an intentional plan by Jackson because I mean, I'm sure he wanted Bowman. He didn't know if he was going to get him or not. But once you get through July 1, then you can just put off that decision until a little later in the summer. Right. So I think had Bowman not been in the running, would those discussions have started out earlier? Like, would the search have started earlier? Hard to say. Would there have been a guy in place for July 1? Hard to say. But looking back though, the way it did play out, it's definitely an odd situation.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, Ryan. I think he would have waited for Stan Bowman. I think he just would have been like, "Oh, we're still looking, we're still looking, we're still looking." Because he seemed pretty dead set on him.
Yeah, it just looked that way, and it's not like Bowman's really done a lot to shape this team yet. We'll find out, I guess, in the next couple days. Not that he's got lots to work with, I guess, right? Like,
It may or may not, depending on a couple things.
yeah, he definitely has a couple days. One thing that we haven't talked about, and Quaddy brings it up, and thanks for tuning in, Quaddy, longtime listener, I think, and he's been pretty good in the chat for us. But he said that's the first game McDavid looked like McDavid in a long time. That's got to give us some hope, right? Like that, like and it was the whole game. Like that was classic Connor McDavid. I don't know when we've seen him play like that this year. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, what a night in your own bed will do.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? I kind of, I always say it like I'd love to be have McDavid's skill on a bad day, right? Like when he's not playing so well. I still have a long ways to go before I'm even close to him when he's in a slump. He looked really good. And maybe that's maybe it has something to do with being at home. Maybe who knows? Maybe the whole team's fighting something. Do we know what Ekholm is fighting? Right? Like what's going on? It's certainly. I think that stretch of games really hurt the Oilers, right in February before the Four Nations. I think that was real hard on this team. And maybe even more so because they'd gone to Game 7, right? They didn't have much of a break in the summer. They're back at it. And then they got this condensed schedule. I don't want to make excuses for them, though. They need to win. We need to win now, right? Trade all our firsts if we have to, right, Lotzi?
Yeah.
Do we have any?
That's a legitimate question. As many no move clauses as we can and trade all our first round picks. That's what we need to do. That'll make the fans happy, right?
Yeah, we're seeing the realities of some of that stuff play out right now, where you don't have any assets to spend at a deadline and nobody that you can move out because they've all got no move clauses. So be careful what you wish for there, Oilers fans.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Lotzi, you did an article on this. Give us your take on what the Oilers, what you feel the Oilers still need to do come deadline, what you think they might do. How are you looking at this? Obviously Frederick was, is that the last domino in the Oilers arsenal, or do you think there's something else coming? Thoughts?
So I do think there's something else coming, and Bob Stauffer's been talking about it for a while, and we've been speculating about it for a while. But adding a depth defenseman, so we know the cap scenario can go a couple different ways based on Evander Kane, but we know there's not a lot to work with if Kane is going to come back at the end of the regular season, which I think Bowman is kind of operating under that assumption for the time being until we hear otherwise. So, like, there was a few transactions today, right? We saw Savoy get sent down, and then Jones get called up. When Dineen's an emergency recall, he's not counting against the cap, so that has no impact on anything. So it was essentially Savoy down, Jones up. There was a brief time this afternoon, and I was looking on Puckpedia kind of a few times, just checking the numbers just to see what would happen to them. We started the day over the cap in LTIR, and our projected cap hit was a shade over 88 million. And then once Savoy was sent down, our projected cap spending went down to a shade below 88 million. But we had it was a little over 900K in cap space available, right? So that math wasn't fully adding up. So like at the end of last week, I reached out to Puckpedia on Twitter or on X, and I was kind of posing the question: if they send Savoy down and get out of LTIR, do they have a pool of accrued cap space from earlier in the season waiting for them? And the answer was essentially yes, but not much. And I think this afternoon I saw that when there was a brief moment before Jones got called up and when Savoy had been sent down, where I saw that 900K number or a little over 900K. In fact, I've got the number right here. $929,844 would be the cap space or current cap space, and deadline cap space was 99,532. It's not a lot, but they might be able to squeeze another league minimum player under the cap should they send Jones down at some point here, right? Like, if they're going to activate Kane, there's going to have to be a move or two to be able to accommodate him on the roster. And it's likely going to be Jones getting sent down. If you send Jones down, you might be able to squeeze a guy making 900K ish onto the roster with at a prorated cap hit. So we need a defenseman, probably left-handed, because Bowman has said they want more insurance just in case Kulak or Nurse or Ekholm go down. They got to be able to play both sides just in case. And decent puck mover, right? So one guy that keeps coming to mind to me that fits those criteria is a UFA and is playing on a selling team right now. It's Josh Mahura from the Seattle Kraken. St. Albert product, league minimum cap hit, played all 82 for the Florida Panthers last year, but became a healthy scratch in the playoffs because they got healthier. And not a big guy, doesn't do anything like exceptionally well, but would fit the bill as a depth D that can come in and contribute meaningfully if needed, if called upon. And so that's not super exciting to fans, I realize, but that's probably all that's going to happen unless something crazy happens and they're able to move Kane or the surprise Oiler that Edmonton Sports Talk reported has asked for a trade, right? We don't know who that player is or how much validity there is to that. Or if they are going to find a way to keep Kane out the entire regular season. Unless any of those things happen, that's all. We're only really going to be able to do money in, money out transactions. Like, we're only going to be able to add a league minimum player at most, unless salary retention. Like, there's a lot of different things that can happen, but you're not adding much cap space unless a player gets moved off the roster.
Yeah. Patrick, I asked for the rundown, and this is the first I've heard of a surprise Oiler asking for a trade.
Well, that didn't happen today.
I've been living under a rock. Give me a little bit about this. What obviously our friends over at Edmonton Sports Talk let this one out. So what do we know?
Well, it was on YouTube. Trev's video on his channel, Above Average. Yeah, he said he couldn't reveal anything, but Tommy and Dusty were talking about Victor Arvidsson over the weekend, and I wonder if maybe through YouTube, Trev, it kind of got misconstrued, and it was Victor Arvidsson they were actually talking about, because Elliot Friedman brought up Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. They were talking about it on the oil stream that same day. Dusty and Tommy were, and I think they were connecting it to Arvidsson. Like, I don't think they came out and said Arvidsson asked for a trade, but my sense based on what they were saying was that was probably Arvidsson. but I don't know that to be true.
Yeah,
Has
that's
asked for a trade.
Well, I don't know if that might have been a stretch if he actually asked for it. I think because Elliot Friedman talked about it a bit on 32 Thoughts as well. I think he's open to a trade. I don't know if he came out and flat out requested one.
Yeah,
But,
again, I don't
Yeah.
have the quote from either YouTube Trev or Tommy on hand, so like I don't want to put words in their mouth or mouths. That's that phrase, but yeah, there was some rumblings, we'll say.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's where it's kind of like if they could free up Arvidsson's $4 million, especially for next year too, that opens up a lot of possibilities. And they are trying to move Evander Kane too if they can find a fit, but that's probably a bit of a long shot being able to move Kane. But who knows? There could be some interest out there.
Yeah. Any chance it could be Skinner?
I don't think so.
I mean, it seemed like it was because his is a modified no move, right? Like where like a 16-team clause or something to that effect, is it not?
Oh, full no move.
Full no
I got
move.
puck friendly or
Yeah,
Puckpedia.
yeah,
Here.
I'm looking at it right now too. Wow, damn it, eh? Everybody's no move.
I know Bowman had said somewhat recently, like a month or two ago, that he didn't plan on asking Skinner to waive.
I remember that.
Unless Skinner's come out and asked, right? Then I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's part of the problem, right? Is the guys you want to move can't be moved. I'm looking, Puckpedia, right? Like you go down the roster and anybody with salary, right? Like his no movement clause, right? It's
even Janmark has a modified no trade, right? Aside from that, it's Corey Perry at 1.15 for forwards.
Yeah. And like, why do you have to give that to Matthias Janmark? Like, really?
It's a reward for a good playoff run.
It was, but like, you can find another player like Janmark, though. Like, okay, if you go, you go.
Can you? You?
Yes, you want to bring as many of those guys back. You want to keep the band together, right? That's why we saw the July one we did. Jackson wanted to keep as many of those guys as he could, and he did. And then he added to it, right?
Yeah, I'm just calling it July worst now. July worst.
July worst. With Kane, they could I think they have all the documentation they need to be able to keep him out for the rest of the regular season. It's just if Kane has his own will and decides he wants an independent doctor to come out and say to challenge the claim that he's not fit to play, right? If he goes elsewhere and gets another opinion and that says, hey, this guy's healthy and ready, now suddenly there's an issue, right? Because as much as we all love to believe in conspiracy theories and that teams are cheating, the league rules mandate that if a player is cleared to play, then he must be activated.
Yeah.
Right. So if Kane wants to go get an opinion that says he's good to go and he wants to play, he's that determined, then he's able to do that if he wants. And that puts the team in a really tough position right now. So as much as I've been saying all year, I think he's going to be out all year. Who knows? I might be wrong. I don't know. I think the team wants him to be out all year, but he might have other ideas. Now, whether that's you could view that a couple different ways. You could view that as him being selfish because it prohibits the team from spending that cap relief at the deadline. But you could also say he's working his ass off to get back and be ready for the team. Right? So two ways you
player wants to sit, I think, right? Like, I mean, there's probably very few players in this league that would even voluntarily sit. Maybe a couple of games, maybe like a week. But if we still got some season left, right? And if you're Evander Kane, you'd want to get in there and play. What about a Kane for Susie trade? Get Kane back home.
Sure.
Yeah, if they want to work out Kane for Besser, do whatever you got to do to make that work, then I'm fine with it. Kane for Susie, though, no, thank you.
No, you wouldn't take Susie.
Well, he's a UFA Kane. Anyway.
Yeah, and he's got he's a left-handed D.
He doesn't have a no move clause.
I'm not saying he's the answer, but
I think anyway.
I mean,
maybe he does.
he might be. He's probably one of the better options for a left-handed D out there right now. That's is being marketed, right? Well,
If you'd have told,
you think he would be anyway.
I
Right?
I would have been excited about him in the year that Vancouver signed him. Like I was a little jealous of that signing, but seeing how it's played out in Vancouver, I'm not super pumped about that anymore.
Yeah, but it's Vancouver, right? Like I mean, yeah, he stayed in the lineup when Desharnais didn't, so I guess that's something, right? Like,
well, he better be better than Desharnais.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what we need on this team? Just somebody that's middle of the road.
Oive.
Yeah.
Seeing a comment from Jody there. Couldn't you send Kane down for a conditioning stint in Bakersfield for a max amount of games? All you can do is 3 or 4 games. It's like a 10-day max stint. Like it wouldn't be much.
And he has to agree to that too, right?
And he has to agree to that as well.
Yeah.
And really, though, like I don't know how much of a difference 3-4 AHL games are going to make. I don't know how much of a difference 1 or 2 NHL games would make. Like if Kane's really adamant about coming back, I think he would come back with a handful or like 10 games left in the season, like with some runway to get him up to speed and prove that he can contribute. But if it's down to a handful of games, like they play 3 or 4 games a week, right? That's an extra week. You might as well just sit him out at that point.
Yeah. There's Stuart Skinner, not the Stuart Skinner, says Rantanen trade to Anaheim. Is that there's nothing legit on that, is there?
I don't see anything.
I'm just trying to scroll.
I saw Jeff Skinner trending on Twitter.
Yeah,
I saw someone said that John Gibson has made a fantastic save of the year candidate tonight, which good for him. I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Dash and I argued about this all last year. I'm not I've always said like Skinner to me is, we could upgrade on him. I don't necessarily agree with Dash in terms of like there's, that Skinner's, you can't find a better goalie out there. I think you could. I just, who's available that's really going to make any difference on this whole, like Gibson's not the guy, right? Like, and I think you made that a good, in your article, Lotzi, like you outlined that pretty well, right? Age, term, like salary, like everything, right? Like there's just no reason why the Oilers would, I think anyway, we don't know Bowman.
It would be super short-sighted. Like John Gibson is having a good year, better year statistically than Skinner. Yes, I'm aware of that. But you look at the previous 2 years, Skinner's been a lot better than Gibson, right? Gibson hasn't really been good for quite a few years now. Part of that's the team in front of him, but part of it is the fact that he just hasn't been as good. That we need to accept that, right? The aging curve for goaltenders, they peak from about 26 to 28, and then it's all downhill from there. And it gets real bad after 29. He's 31. The fact that he's having a bit of a resurgence this year is a surprise. It's an outlier. Why would you buy high on an outlier? Right? Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
I just retweeted the save if you want to see it. It's on my feed there.
All right. As we all rush over to
pause the podcast. Pause the podcast.
Pause the live stream. Let's check out the save seen around the world. You can find Patrick's X account at Oilers Fanatic YT. And there we have the okay, I'm having a look while we're talking here. Oh, that is pretty. Whoa, jeez! I thought the first save was nice, but then the yeah. All right.
Man, I gotta find this highlight.
Make that man an Oiler. Make that man
That's
an
all you
Oiler.
need to see. That's all. It's over.
That's it.
3 first-round picks, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, whatever you
Throw in
got to do.
Roy, O'Reilly,
Yeah.
the whole farm. They can have Bakersfield. Just get John Gibson over here.
Get Gibson. The answer. We're just calling him the answer. That's what we're doing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Just trying to copy
John, the
Vasilevsky.
answer Gibson. Yeah. That is a pretty nice save. Here's my challenge with Skinner and Pickard is those guys, they're just fundamentally, I feel like, they're good, decent NHL caliber goalies, but they're not they don't do saves like this, right? Like you never see a Skinner like save of the year candidate. I don't like why. I don't know. I mean, he's had stretches. I feel like he's just, he's fundamentally a solid goalie, right?
The defense gives them lots of opportunities to make that save.
Well, that's just it. But that's what you want, right? Once in a while, you want a guy to make a save like that, don't you? Right? Once in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get hung up on a Skinner, like Jeff Skinner or a Stuart Skinner thing. Because he's not been good, but it's not just him.
No.
Like the Oilers looked awful yesterday. That McTavish, that one that that was Picard, but like he had no chance on that. There were.
One, you're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah. No, and that was it, right? Like Pickard could have stayed in, and I would have been all right with that because I didn't think he was awful, right? Like I didn't think, I felt like, it was 4-1 because the defense felt like they didn't need to cover the front of the net, right? Which is, pretty much a standard thing to do when you're on defense. But they felt like last night they weren't going to do that in the first period for whatever reason. Rediscovery said, talking goaltending with the Oilers makes me depressed. It makes us all depressed. But I don't think it's just goaltending.
It's far more than that.
Yeah, it is. It's far more than that. Yeah.
Everybody on that roster needs to be better, not just the goaltending. Or not just the goaltenders. Everybody.
Yeah. Can I just do one other angle on Stuart Skinner?
No.
No,
we're done. All right, give us the angle.
Come on, one more angle.
No,
it's not like it really even talking about him so much. It's looking at that Karel Vejmelka contract for $4.75 million. Now I know Skinner was part of the team that took them to Game 7 last year, but are we looking like if the Oilers resigned Skinner, like should he be something in that same range of 4.75? Like what has he done so much better than like I think he probably earns more than Vejmelka, but I was kind of worried about like where he might come in at. But after this year and stuff, like is he much above 5? Do you think?
Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if he can repeat and take the Oilers again back to the Stanley Cup final, maybe. I just like. Goaltending's funny, right? Because you have to have a goaltender to play, right? Like you just can't, enter a season without a starting goalie. You just can't. And so you got leverage, right? If you're the starter, you got some leverage. So he'll have leverage. And if he has anything resembling success, it doesn't matter that he went through stretches of being absolutely horrendous. Right, he'll still have leverage, and as Oilers fans, we'll still yell and scream at, "Can't believe they signed him for over 5," right? But what are you going to do, right? Like you could let him sit out and play with your backup. You hope that Lotzi has no faith in this, but you hope they're developing somebody, or which they're not really right now. I mean, Rodrigue, might never be an NHL goalie. Right,
yeah.
24 years old, having a rough year.
Yeah, right. Like there's who else is in the system?
I mean, we got Emil Vinny drafted last year, who got a little bit of optimism over, but again, I've never seen the kid play, and he's still over in Finland, so like he's a long ways away.
Yeah, he'd still be like 2-3 years at least away. So
at least,
yeah. if not more. Yeah.
I mean, you only sign. Maybe you hope, like, you look at the goalie market and see who's coming up on UFA, right? And you sign Skinner to something that looks a little bit like a bridge for a $5 million contract, right? And
Well,
some
you
stranger
got these
says
two.
team took Skinner to Game 7, and I tend to agree with that, right?
Yeah, you look at Skinner's numbers last year. He was a 901 save percentage and a 2.49 goals against. Right, it's a below average save percentage, or very close to average, and below average goals against. So that tells me the team played really well in front of him. Right, but if the team plays well defensively and sticks to their structure, that's all you need. You don't need Connor Hellebuck. Right,
Mhm.
you just need a guy that can make the saves he's supposed to make.
Well, and clearly you don't need Connor Hellebuck because he's never been there, right?
Yeah, he's
You
never
know?
won one.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a Four Nations Cup either.
No,
Yeah.
no, he really doesn't. He really doesn't. Yeah. I mean, it's like, look, it is what it is. We've got Stuart Skinner. He's the best we've got. The Oilers have to find ways to make him successful, right? And
And they got
and I've said it. Fundamentally, he's an NHL goalie, right? Like, whether you think he is a starter on a top tier team, yeah, you could argue that all day long, right? But he's the goalie the Oilers have, and there's not, outside of Gibson.
you
Patrick,
got
your biggest, like, I don't know who Simon is, but he's like your biggest fan, Patrick. He's like, I don't give a shit that Michael and Ryan are on the show, but hey, Patrick, what's your opinion? Can those guys put themselves on mute for a second? So, hey, Patrick, you're in on this coming Friday. In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen with the other Canadian teams? It's going to be very busy this Friday with trades. Thoughts on other? Ryan, put yourself on mute. It's Patrick's show right now.
You don't have to put yourself on mute.
Yeah. You know what, Pat? I love it because they're
Yeah.
like 20 of these guys are here to see you, and I'm all right with that. Your thoughts on the other Canadian teams?
Well, we really haven't seen Toronto do much of anything yet, so I imagine they're going to be trying to do a couple big things before Friday. Ottawa will probably, I can't remember how far Ottawa is out right now. Are they in? They don't have a playoff spot right now, do they?
No.
7 of the
No.
8 teams in the Atlantic
Yeah.
are in the mix.
Yeah,
Right.
so Ottawa will try to add something. I think Toronto is going to probably add the biggest piece out of all of them. Has Winnipeg done anything yet? I'm trying to think.
Nope.
No,
No.
they have some cap space and the desire to, though.
Yeah. So Winnipeg will do something for sure with the year they're having. Calgary might add a small piece just kind of as a reward for the year they're having, but I don't imagine anything big. Probably just a guy they could probably re-sign, something like that.
Oh, and they may have already done their work getting
Yeah.
Farabee and Frost out of Philly.
Yeah. Vancouver's buying and selling because they might move Besser here before Friday, so that could be a big deal wherever he goes if he does go. They don't have to do it before Friday, but yeah, I'm guessing Toronto is going to make the biggest noise out of all the Canadian teams. And I don't know how busy it's going to be on Friday. I don't think it's going to set any records or anything, but it should pick up. I think there's going to be a lot of smaller deals and like maybe a handful of bigger ones that kind of are really eye-catching.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay, Bennington it is. So we'll highlight that one. I hit the wrong button. Some stranger, you get highlighted there. Were we trading for Bennington? Maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
Who's that? Yeah. Who's the St. Louis insider again? Andy Strickland. I think he said Bennington's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I can. Why would they? Right?
Yeah.
They're at the point. Well, they're still in it too, right? Like St. Louis has an outside shot. It's not that much of an outside shot even. Really? What are they? 3 points back?
Well, JL saying Gibson just left the game with an injury. So Gibson might be out too, apparently.
Yeah, that might be the best news we've heard. Right? He's not, means he's not coming to Edmonton. I feel like, to your point, Lottie, like a guy like Gibson comes to Edmonton and all these fans get super excited because when, they don't want to deal with Skinner anymore. And then Gibson's Gibson and like shows he's human. and then Oilers fans, turn the page tomorrow and they're like, why did we even trade for Gibson? Like, as if they didn't, if you went back in their posts, they weren't all cheering and drooling over him to begin with.
Like, let's say you trade for him and they don't win the cup this year, right? Next year, you've got a season where he comes back down to earth and you've spent assets to get him and he's got a higher cap hit and he's older, right? The contracts both expire at the same time. If my memory serves correctly, they both have next year. But at the end of next season, you're looking to replace a 31-year-old or 32-year-old goaltender rather than a 27-year-old goaltender who you grew internally and could potentially resign and still get a couple prime years out of, right? So, like, panic moves are never good. We're panicking right now because Skinner's having a rough year comparison to his last two. But even at a rough year, he's still he's average or very close to it, right? If playing at his best, he's a little above average. That's what he is. And that's okay. The Oilers can win if he's playing at that level.
The Oilers are also on a blip at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like all the teams have had this. Vegas, when we caught up to Vegas, it's because they were in a blip. They were in a downturn. I think they went 3-7 during that little stretch too. If you look at Vegas, they were awful. Right? I remember thinking they were going to drop down maybe even to third. And now they're back when they're beating Toronto tonight. What's the score in that game? Anyway, I mean they 5-1 now going into the third. Vegas looks to be
don't
back.
Don't sleep on LA, guys. Don't sleep on LA either. Like they look like they're further behind us in the standings than they are because they have a couple games in hand.
They're on
they're
on a
there.
3-game losing streak too, though.
Yep, they are. But
yeah.
But that's a 3-horse race for the division.
I think, though, if the Oilers are looking at the deadline, not going in a panic mode, as you said, I couldn't disagree. But they have to be expecting to play LA again, right? And in everything, I think you gotta look at what's ahead of you, and so make this team capable of beating LA for another year. Get that momentum. That first round is in my opinion the most important, especially for the Oilers. You get the momentum. You got guys like Connor and Leon, and they can do a lot during the rest of the playoffs. But you get that momentum, get some confidence going, and the sky's the limit for them. They should be prepping themselves to play for LA. It's going to be another. What's that? The 4th year in a row?
Yep.
Yeah. What's Will Ferrell got up his sleeve? That's what we should be asking. What would Will Ferrell do?
The guy's unpredictable.
He is unpredictable. I mean, you just don't know.
He might not show up this year.
He might. No, he might not. I mean, that would hurt for. But again, I mean, we said it last year though. Like, how many times can you beat the same team, right?
Yeah, you guys were on me about picking LA in the first round in our little.
I'll be on you again if you
hockey
do it.
pool. Dash has already been talking like he's gonna do that if we get LA again. I don't know.
I mean, Dash picked Calgary 2 years ago, so now. I mean,
Poor Dash is getting thrown under the bus here. Yeah. Get sick, and he's getting thrown under the bus on his own podcast.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? We're what time is deadline at noon Eastern Friday?
1. 3 Eastern, 1 o'clock our time.
Yeah. 3 Eastern. 4:00 here in Atlantic Canada. All right. It is. I mean, it's going to be interesting. We'll see. This is Bowman's chance to shape the Oilers, right? And I mean, we've seen some creative trades at the deadline. The Oilers have seemingly, Ekholm is maybe the best example.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one they just pulled off was a nice little three-way deal. I mean, you can argue how much they gave up, but they found a creative way to get Frederick and got him down to 75% retained in that deal. So
yeah, it's fair. I mean, they, what's your thought on that, Lotzi? I mean, they're giving up couple draft picks. Does that bother you? Max Wanner was a nice little prospect. But still unproven, right?
Yeah, my initial reaction was ouch because I thought it was a lot to give up. Here's how I've broken it down since. Like, we got Peter Hauser from the Devils in exchange for Shane Lachance, who we now know was never going to sign with us anyway. So I was excited about Lachance, but knowing that he was never going to sign, then whatever, not a big deal. Warner, great season last year as a rookie, led the Condors in plus minus at plus 13 as a rookie, right? Seventh rounder was doing that for us, but this year he's been limited to 20 games or something in that range this year because of injuries. And when he's been in, he hasn't been nearly as good. And that's a seventh rounder. I mean, the odds are probably not going to be an impactful player in the long run. So yeah, I was a little sad to see him go. You get an emotional attachment to your draft picks, especially when they're one of the few that seems to be trending upwards. But that's not a huge loss at the end of the day. But a second and a fourth for Trent Frederick. You're paying a little extra for salary retention. I get that. And it's a deadline deal. You're always paying a little extra for that. And part of me feels like we paid a little extra just because he had a good season last season. He had 40 points in 81 or 82 games. Like, he was a contributor full time for them last year. Even the year before that, he put up points at a similar rate. But this year, he's dropped way off a cliff offensively, right? So again, like, do you want to spend on something a guy's done in years past? Like, I would have been better with it had I been fully confident that I could stick him on my third line and he was going to produce at that same level. But I'm not confident in that at all. What I think we have is a fourth line banger with a little bit of potential for maybe playing in your third line. Like, I just don't see the full offensive upside. And guys are peaking earlier and earlier, right? They usually peak before they hit UFA status. And that's exactly where Frederick is right now. So, yep, it's exciting that he's big and he's going to crash and bang. That'll make a lot of people happy. I personally don't give a crap about that so much. That's not our style. And I really don't see how it's going to make us that much better of a team. It might give us the odd emotional lift, but we were one of the best teams in the league when being last in hits, right? I don't see a huge correlation between hitting and winning. So spending that much just to make your team bigger and more physical, that doesn't excite me. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
But I
but we need
understand
a
why
little
they
bit
do
of
it.
energy. Come on, Lotzi. I mean, we need some energy, right? Like, I kept saying like a guy like Lomberg would be good. I've said that every day for last few weeks.
Yep.
Like, we need some energy on this team. Podkolzin is decent energy, but I mean, it would be nice if he could put the
And how
puck in the net
impactful has
once
it
in a
been?
while, right? That's the thing, though. But he doesn't score. He's had chances, but he doesn't score. So we need a guy that can do what Podkolzin does and put the puck in the net once in a while. I think Frederick, offers that to a little bit of an extent, right? Like, he can score more, we hope anyway,
We hope.
than Podkolzin. Again, I will argue over and over again that until we find a coach that can stick to the system and trust the whole team, we're going to go through this thing over and over and over again. Like, get out of it. Like, lose against Montreal if it means trusting your team, right? Like, you got to establish that you trust the team to get you out of this slump. And I just think they're sending the wrong message. But I don't know, Patrick, your thoughts? Like, my thought is we need some energy. Lotsy's fine with no energy. No, just kidding. Lotsy's fine with the style of play where the Oilers aren't, a hitting team.
Well, we already had no energy, so
yeah. We've got the no energy part down.
yeah.
That's the politician speaking, right? Like, I totally strip your words away from you. No, I mean, what's your thoughts there, Patrick?
Well, I'm a little bit more high on it than Lotsy is. I mean, he is having a down year, but I think everybody on Boston was pretty much. It wasn't just like he took a walk off a cliff. I think most of that team did, which is why they're in the position that they are. And hopefully, I mean, it's a risk for sure. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be an all-star or anything, but I think he should comfortably be able to fit in the top 9 and maybe a fresh start. I think he sounded really excited about coming to Edmonton, and maybe there's something where. Am I still with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a message saying, oops, something went wrong on the thing. But okay. I guess it was just.
But I'm not the only one seeing that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. It wasn't just me then. I'm like, oh, am I frozen or something? Okay. So anyway, yeah, no, I think he's going to be a fine top 9 addition. And who knows, maybe he turns into something like a Pat Maroon where he ends up getting some chemistry with a McDavid or a Draisaitl when you put him with him. I mean, that's a pretty tall ask, but he's a guy I heard that has offensive ability. If you put him with 2 of the best guys in the league, I mean, who knows what could happen. But I think if he's successful, you're going to be a lot happier with this trade if the Oilers are able to re-sign him. If it's not just a rental.
Yeah, I think that's a factor, but I still think the asking that second rounder, especially because we know it was the second rounder they got for Broberg.
Yeah.
I think part of that plays into it. Like, I just think it's steep for what Frederick's going to bring.
Yeah. Well, we already know you got the bus running. You ready to? I hope Frederick proves you wrong. I really do.
I mean, hey, I'm an Oilers fan. Look behind me, right? Like, I would love it if he proved me wrong, but I just feel like we've seen this movie a couple times before, where we bring in the big physical guy, I think, getting all excited because he's gonna hit, and then it doesn't really impact winning all that much.
Yeah,
Just looks like you like the mountains. What I don't know. You even like the Oilers? I just see mountains.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's not the answer for this team.
No.
Right? Like, he's but the other side to this is I don't know if the Oilers need an answer. They were one of the best teams over a long stretch of games. This is a blip at the end of the day. This is a blip, and they got to get back. They, as Knobloch said, they're fragile right now. This team starts to roll. Like, Hyman is Hyman. Like, he's gonna find, he's had a bad part of the season. Then he, broke his nose and played with a fishbowl for half of it, right? Like, he's going to find his game. He's going to start putting the puck in the net, right? Nuge has got to be better. Bouchard's got to be better, right? And we were winning games and we still said those guys need to be better, and they can be better. They got the capability. Ekholm is fighting something. Somebody the other day, right? You shared it, Patrick, said Ekholm might be the worst defenseman on the team. I don't think that's a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, we've had some guys, though. It was said in the chat just now, Nurse has actually played reasonably well this year. We missed him for a few games or a couple games, right? Like, it was noticeable that he wasn't in the lineup. Klingberg is still 10 games into a season after missing a season. I don't know how many games has Klingberg played already.
Well, I know the Oilers have only won 3 games with him, though.
Is that
Hey, correlation, not causation, in my opinion. Like, I don't think Klingberg's been that bad.
No, it's not his fault, but I'm just saying, just 3 wins,
But just in case anyone's thinking it right now, and I read some opinions on Twitter that say Klingberg is terrible and this and that. I don't think he's been that bad. Has he been lights out? No, but like, I'm willing to be a little more patient with Klingberg for sure.
10 games. I was right. 4 points in 10 games. That's not bad. I'll take that. Take that if you take that over the stretch for, what they signed him for.
Absolutely.
And then some of these guys we know get better as the playoffs happen. Hopefully Arvidsson's one of them. I mean, we're all crossing our fingers for this playoff Arvidsson guy. If he could only just have a couple regular season games. Let's see playoff Arvidsson like a couple games early. Let's do a playoff Arvidsson showcase. Wouldn't that be something? Skinner, maybe. Jeff Skinner. No. I'll buy the jersey if it gets him in the lineup.
They probably don't even sell it at the store. You'd have to get it specially made.
You probably do have to get it.
I was there the other day. I don't know. I don't remember seeing it.
Oh man. Jody's asking what's his plus minus. Plus minus is not a big deal, but +2 if you care to know. Klingberg is a +2. He's a 4-point player. Man, huge signing for the Oilers. Somebody talked about Emberson has fallen off. I don't think he's fallen off. He's just not a young guy. I think he's going to have some ups and downs during the year.
Yeah, like we barely notice him out there most nights, which I think is a best case scenario for Emberson right now.
He's better than I thought he'd be, to be fair. Like, I wouldn't say he's fallen off. I think he's been fine. Right? All right. We got like 4 minutes left. I'll say a couple things. March 15th coming up. 9 days from today. I'll be arriving in Edmonton Thursday or Friday and ready to play some hockey. So I'll be looking for a game Friday night, by the way. If anybody's got a game, put it in the chat. You need a player on your team. I'll have my equipment. I'll be ready to play. And then Saturday's the big game. Heavy Hockey Showdown. Team Heavy Hockey versus Edmonton Sports Talk. So we're playing against Dustin Nielsen, Tom Gazzola, his brother, I think. A couple other guys. YouTube Trev, I think, is playing. I don't know. The whole Edmonton Sports Talk, their whole squad.
Too.
Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of cool. Game starts at noon on the Saturday at the downtown community rink and goes till 3:00. So come on by. Hunter's going to be there. Rob Clark will be there to open us up with the anthem. We'll have lots of entertainment and probably some prizes. Yeah, we're trending towards about 20,000 in donations right now. We need to be higher than that. So please check out, Lotzi, myself, Patrick, our X profiles. You'll find our donation pages there. We're gonna give Lotzi last word tonight, Patrick. So
well, fine.
Give you a. Hey, I
got it.
Giving you the last word, but everybody's asking Patrick what he had to think about everything. So you're being penalized for being the most popular guy on the show tonight. Anyway, a couple words.
Forcing
Patrick,
everyone to listen to me.
That's right. Then we'll pass it over to you. We're force feeding Lotzi to the general public. All right, go ahead.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us in the chat. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, as always, Michael, Ryan. Love doing the show with you guys. And, donate to SACE. Come out to the Heavy Hockey Showdown there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's my first one tonight. And, you can follow me at Oilers Fanatic YT on X, Blue Sky, and, of course, got my YouTube channel, The Oilers Fanatic, and keep you guys up to date on all the latest on the Oilers, and it should be an exciting 48 hours here leading up to the trade deadline. So, thanks everyone for joining us.
And I'll take my opportunity to talk about the showdown as well. So if you've been following me on Twitter at LotsRyan, then you'll know that every Wednesday for the last couple months, I've been putting out videos regarding SACE and what they do and what your donations to SACE actually are helping with. And I've talked about everything from counseling to helping people with the court and the justice system to public education. And just branching off the public education part of it, the video I'm going to post after this, because I'm just realizing I haven't posted it yet, is going to be about their work that they've done with Hockey Edmonton. So they actually came out with some content that was designed specifically for Hockey Edmonton to give staff members there some information and support that they need to make awareness or to bring awareness of this subject matter to people within Edmonton or within Hockey Edmonton. And we know that sexual violence in hockey has been a big issue for a long time, and we're continuing to see serious cases come into the limelight all the time. And there's a new one that just came out within the last couple days here out of Ontario. So it's awful to see. I hate that hockey is associated with this. I hate that it goes on in society at all, but it's especially rough to see it on hockey or coming out of hockey. So it's great to see that SACE has a program that's doing something about it. So that's nice to see. But anyway, so yes, donate to whether it's myself or any other player participating in the showdown. We have some people who still need to reach their minimums for fundraising. So if we can help boost them up a little bit, that'd be awesome as well. But aside from that, let's enjoy the frenzy that's going to be the next couple days leading up to the trade deadline, and try to enjoy the game against the Habs tomorrow night. That's always fun when they're in town. And aside from that, thanks for tuning in and have a wonderful night.
Oilers Live.